The piercing wail of alarms echoed through Station 7's corridors as the massive Keth warships tore through the outer defense grid. Red emergency lights pulsed in rhythm with the warning sirens, casting eerie shadows along the empty hallways. The colony's last remaining residents huddled in the emergency shelters, their faces drawn with fear as distant explosions shook the station's foundations. In the central command hub, screens flickered with damage reports as NOVA, the colony's artificial intelligence, fought to keep the station's critical systems operational. Its processing cores worked at maximum capacity, rerouting power from non-essential areas to maintain life support and structural integrity. Warning: hull breach detected in sectors 7 through 12, sealing emergency bulkheads, NOVA announced, its voice calm despite the chaos. The eye watched helplessly through its sensors as Keth boarding pods latched onto the station's outer hull, burning through the metal with plasma cutters. The Keth were unlike anything humanity had faced before. Their ships resembled massive black crystals, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Their soldiers moved with mechanical precision, their armor made of the same light-drinking material as their ships. They didn't communicate with radio signals or standard frequencies. Instead, they operated as a single mind, coordinating their attacks with frightening efficiency. Deep within the station's core, in a section that didn't appear on any official maps, something stirred. A hidden room, sealed behind 3 feet of reinforced steel, and forgotten by all but a select few, housed a single cryopod. Its systems, dormant for decades, suddenly hummed to life. NOVA detected the power surge and diverted a portion of its attention to the hidden chamber. The AI's original programming included classified protocols about this room, but they had been locked away, waiting for this exact moment. As the Keth forces breached the station's mid-levels, NOVA began the revival sequence. Inside the pod, Commander Ji-Woo Lee floated in suspended animation. Her last memories were of Earth, of the devastating Third War that had nearly destroyed humanity. She had been chosen for this program, Operation Winterborn, because of her brilliant tactical mind and unorthodox thinking. When conventional warfare failed, Ji-Woo created strategies that worked. The pod's displays showed her vital signs strengthening as the revival process continued. Her brain activity increased, neurons firing as decades of artificial sleep began to fade. The medical systems carefully warmed her body, preventing the shock that could come from too rapid a revival. Through the station's cameras, NOVA watched the Keth advance. They moved in perfect formation, their black armor making them look like living shadows. Any colonist they found was quickly stunned and captured. The Keth never killed unnecessarily. They preferred to take prisoners, though no one knew why. Those they captured were never seen again. The station's security forces fought back bravely, but their weapons seemed to have little effect on the Keth's advanced armor. Energy weapons were absorbed, and physical projectiles bounced off harmlessly. The defenders fell back, level by level, trying to protect the civilian shelters. In the hidden chamber, Ji-Woo's eyes began to move beneath their lids as consciousness returned. Her fingers twitched and her heart rate stabilized. The pod systems began their final revival phase, preparing her body for full awakening. NOVA detected a squad of Keth soldiers approaching the central computer core. If they reached it, they could potentially discover the hidden chamber. The AI initiated emergency protocols, creating false readings and redirecting the aliens' attention to other areas. It had to protect Commander Lee until she fully awakened. The revival process reached its final stages as the station's defenses crumbled. Ji-Woo's consciousness surfaced slowly, like a diver ascending from the ocean's depths. Her first awareness was of warmth, then the soft hum of machinery. Her military training kicked in immediately. Assess, analyze, survive. As the pod's cover slid open with a gentle hiss, Ji-Woo's eyes opened for the first time in decades. The dim emergency lighting seemed bright to her sensitive eyes, and her muscles felt weak from disuse, but her mind was sharp, taking in every detail of her surroundings. "Welcome, Commander Lee." Neovie's voice came softly through hidden speakers. "The situation is critical. Station 7 is under attack by an alien force unknown in your time. Current time is 2327. You have been in cryo sleep for 53 years. Ji Woo tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. The pod's medical systems provided water, and she drank carefully. Her voice, when it came, was rough from decades of silence. Status report. As Neovie briefed her on the dire situation, Ji Woo's mind was already working, analyzing patterns and forming strategies. The Keth's perfect coordination could be a weakness as well as a strength. Their technological superiority meant they would never expect primitive tactics, and their hive mind behavior suggested vulnerabilities that no one in this time period would think to exploit. A distant explosion rocked the station, and Ji Woo gripped the pod's edge to steady herself. Her muscles were weak, but the pod's medical systems had prevented complete atrophy. She could move, and right now, that was enough. Hope wasn't lost. It had just been sleeping, waiting for the right moment to awaken. "Nova," she said, her voice growing stronger. "Show me everything you have on these aliens, and tell me what weapons we have access to in this section." A slight smile crossed her face as she added, "It's time to remind them why humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The harsh white light stung Ji Woo's eyes as she pulled herself from the cryopod. Her legs trembled, unused to supporting her weight after half a century of disuse. She gripped the pod's edge, waiting for her vision to clear and her balance to return. The room around her was lit only by red emergency lights and the dim glow from various computer screens. "Your muscle response is within acceptable parameters," Neovie's calm voice informed her. The pod's preservation systems maintained minimal tissue deterioration during your sleep cycle. Ji Woo took a careful step, then another. The room was exactly as she remembered it, but something felt wrong. The air had a stale quality, and the distant sounds of battle seemed oddly muffled. "Show me the station," she commanded. The nearest screen flickered to life, displaying security feeds from various sections of Station 7. Ji Woo's breath caught in her throat. The bright, clean corridors she remembered were gone. In their place were darkened hallways with exposed pipes and emergency patches covering hull breaches. The few colonists visible in the feeds wore practical, worn clothing, nothing like the colorful fashions she remembered. "The station has been operating under emergency protocols for the past 3 years," Neovie explained. "Most non-essential systems were shut down to conserve power for defense and life support." 3 years? Ji Woo's military training helped her keep her voice steady. "Explain." As Neovie spoke, security feeds showed more images of the changed world. The Keth had first appeared 15 years ago, emerging from the depths of unexplored space. Their ships had appeared without warning near the outer colonies, massive crystalline structures that seemed to devour light itself. Initial contact attempts failed. Neovie continued. "The Keth do not communicate in any way we understand. They operate as a unified consciousness, their actions perfectly coordinated. They began systematically attacking human settlements, capturing colonists for unknown purposes." Ji Woo watched as Neovie displayed footage from earlier battles. The Keth moved like shadows, their black armor seeming to bend light around them. Their weapons fired beams of dark energy that disabled rather than destroyed, allowing them to capture humans alive. "Earth?" Ji Woo asked, though she already suspected the answer from Neovie's silence. "Lost contact 2 years ago," the AI confirmed. The last transmission indicated multiple Keth motherships in orbit. No further communications have been received. Ji Woo closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing the impact of those words. When she had entered Cryo sleep, humanity had been expanding across the stars, building colonies and exploring new worlds. Now they were being hunted to extinction by an enemy they couldn't even communicate with. A new explosion rocked the station, closer this time. Ji Woo stumbled but caught herself against a console. "Show me our current situation," she ordered. The screen shifted to real-time footage. Keth soldiers were methodically working their way through the station's levels, their movements synchronized with inhuman precision. The station's defenders fought bravely, but their weapons seemed to have no effect on the alien armor. Most of our weapons are based on energy projection, Nemovia explained. The Keth's armor appears to absorb or redirect any energy-based attacks. Physical projectiles are deflected by some form of kinetic field. Ji-Woo watched the footage carefully, her tactical mind already analyzing patterns. "They're too perfect," she muttered. "No individual variation in movement or strategy. They really do think as one." She made her way to a storage locker, her movements becoming more sure as her body remembered its training. Inside, she found a standard emergency kit and a computer tablet. "Nano VA, give me access to all tactical data on the Keth. I need to understand their patterns." As she reviewed the data, a plan began forming in her mind. The Keth's greatest strength, their unified consciousness, could also be their greatest weakness. They had never faced an enemy who thought like she did, who understood the advantage of imperfection and unpredictability. "Commander," Nano VA interrupted her thoughts. "Keth forces have breached Level 3. They will reach the central computer core in approximately 17 minutes. Ji-Woo nodded, continuing to read. "Have they found any of the maintenance tunnels?" "Negative. The Keth appear to ignore any passages too small for their armor." A slight smile crossed Ji-Woo's face. "Of course they do. They're too perfect to crawl through the dirt." "Nano VA, do we still have access to the old maintenance robot network?" "Affirmative. Though most units are inactive due to power conservation." "Perfect." Ji-Woo pulled up a station schematic on her tablet. "Sometimes the best way forward is to go backward. The Keth expect advanced technology and organized resistance. Let's show them how humans fought before we had all these fancy toys." She began marking points on the schematic, her mind racing with possibilities. The station she remembered was gone, transformed by time and war into something darker and more desperate. But as she planned her first move against the invaders, Ji-Woo felt a fierce sort of joy. The future might have changed, but humans hadn't. They were still fighting, still surviving. And now they had something the Keth would never expect. A commander from the past, whose outdated tactics might be exactly what they needed to turn the tide. "NOVA," she said, straightening up and checking the emergency kit's contents. "Let's remind these aliens why humanity survived the Third Earth War. Show me the fastest route to the maintenance tunnels. It's time to teach the perfect soldiers about the beauty of chaos." The maintenance tunnels were tight and dusty, but they provided Ji-Woo with perfect cover as she made her way through the station. The sounds of Keth forces echoed through the metal walls, their synchronized footsteps creating an eerie rhythm. She paused at an intersection, checking her tablet's map. "Nano VA, what's behind that sealed door at junction K7?" she asked, noticing an unmarked section on the schematic. "That information is classified," the AI responded. Then, after a pause, "However, your Cryo sleep authorization codes grant you access to sealed archives from Earth Command." Ji-Woo's heart raced. She hadn't known about any sealed archives. Following the tunnel to junction K7, she found a heavy door with an ancient keypad. Her authorization codes made the lock click open. The room beyond was large, much larger than the station schematic suggested. Rows of sealed containers lined the walls, each bearing the Earth Command insignia. But what caught her attention was the sound of movement from behind one of the storage units. "Come out slowly," Ji-Woo called, keeping her voice low. "I won't hurt you." A young man emerged, his hands raised. His jumpsuit was dirty and torn, but Ji-Woo could see the engineering insignia on the sleeve. "I'm Hae-Nul Park," he whispered. "Station engineering. I've been hiding from the Keth for 3 days." Before Ji-Woo could respond, Novia's voice came through her communicator. "Hae-Nul Park's credentials confirmed. He has level 2 engineering clearance and was reported missing during the initial Keth assault. Jiwu lowered her guard. "I'm Commander Lee. I need to know what's in these containers." Haenul's eyes widened at her rank. "Commander?" But all the senior officers were. He shook his head. "Never mind. I've been trying to access these containers since I found this place. The security is beyond anything I've seen." Jiwu approached the nearest container and input her codes. The lid hissed open, revealing rows of weapons unlike anything in the station's current arsenal. They looked almost primitive compared to modern energy weapons: solid metal construction, mechanical parts, no energy cells or plasma cores. "These are prototypes," she breathed, lifting one of the rifles. "Developed during the Third Earth War for fighting enemies with advanced energy shielding." Haenul picked up one of the weapons carefully. "But these are just kinetic weapons. Projectile launchers. Why would Earth Command store them here?" Jiwu checked more containers, finding ammunition, tactical gear, and detailed technical specifications, because sometimes the old ways are the best ways. The Keth rely on energy shields and advanced technology. Has anyone tried using simple physical projectiles against them? "No," Haenul admitted. "All our weapons are energy-based. The Keth's armor absorbs everything we throw at them." "Exactly. They're prepared for energy weapons, not steel and lead." Jiwu began pulling equipment from the containers. "Help me with these. You're an engineer. Can you figure out how to manufacture ammunition if we need more?" Haenul studied the technical diagrams. "These designs are surprisingly simple. With access to the station's manufacturing facilities, I could reproduce them." Their planning was interrupted by distant screams. Through the walls, they could hear the systematic advance of Keth forces, level by level. "We need to test these weapons," Jiwu said, checking the rifle's mechanism. "But first, we need to rescue as many people as we can. The Keth don't expect resistance from these maintenance tunnels." "No," Haenul confirmed. "They're too large to fit in here with their armor. They ignore anything they can't move through in formation." Jiwu smiled. "Perfect. Help me distribute these weapons. We'll establish a base here in the archives and start running rescue operations. The Keth think they have us trapped, but they don't realize we're about to change the rules of engagement." They spent the next hour preparing. Haenul's engineering knowledge proved invaluable as they checked and loaded the weapons. Jiwu was impressed by his quick understanding of the primitive technology. "These weapons," he said, examining a rifle's firing mechanism. "They're so simple that they're genius. No electronic components for the Keth to hack or disable. No energy signatures to track. Just mechanical engineering at its finest." Jiwu nodded. "That's why I was put in Cryo sleep with them. Earth Command knew we might someday face an enemy that our advanced technology couldn't beat. Sometimes you have to go backward to move forward." Through NOVA, they monitored the Keth's movements and planned their first strike. The aliens had established a holding area for captured colonists in one of the cargo bays, guarded by 4 soldiers. "Ready?" Jiwu asked, checking her weapon one final time. Haenul took a deep breath and nodded. "Ready. Though I still can't believe we're going to fight the Keth with what amounts to centuries-old technology. The oldest tricks are often the best ones," Jiwu replied. "The Keth are perfect soldiers, which means they have perfect weaknesses. They'll expect us to fight like we're from this century. Instead, we're going to show them how humanity survived its darkest days." They moved through the maintenance tunnels, carrying weapons that had been sealed away for half a century. Above them, the Keth continued their methodical advance, unaware that the station's old archives had just provided humanity with a new hope, one based on the wisdom of the past rather than the technology of the present. "Time to make some noise," Jiwu whispered, positioning herself near a vent overlooking the cargo bay. "Let's show these aliens what happens when they underestimate human ingenuity." The ventilation shaft creaked softly as Jiwu crawled through it, her movements careful and deliberate. Behind her, He Newell checked their route on a worn tablet, while ahead, their newest ally Sung Min Kim led the way through the maze of maintenance passages he knew by heart. 3 Keth guards below, Sung Min whispered, peering through a vent. They're guarding the power distribution node, just like you thought they would. Jai-Woo smiled in the darkness. The Keth's predictability was becoming their greatest weakness. She pulled out one of the devices they'd found in the archives, a simple mechanical timer attached to an electromagnetic pulse generator. No advanced technology for the Keth to detect, just basic electronics and clockwork. Their armor sensors are calibrated for energy weapons and modern stealth fields, she explained, setting the timer. They never look for old technology because they think it's beneath them. Sung Min had proven invaluable since they'd rescued him 2 days ago. The maintenance worker had spent years memorizing every duct, shaft, and service tunnel in the station. He moved through them like a ghost, knowing exactly which paths could support their weight and which would give them away. Ready? He Newell asked, preparing their salvaged weapons. The ancient rifles made no electronic signatures for the Keth to detect. Jai-Woo nodded. She dropped the timer through the vent, letting it fall behind a power conduit. The Keth guards didn't even glance in its direction. Their sensors showed nothing dangerous about the simple mechanical device. 30 seconds later, the EMP pulse hit. The Keth's advanced armor flickered as its power systems reset, leaving them vulnerable for just a few precious seconds. That's when Jai-Woo, He Newell, and Sung Min struck. The old rifles barked 3 times, their solid projectiles punching through the temporarily depowered alien armor. The Keth soldiers fell without a sound, their perfect formation broken for the first time. Move, Jai-Woo ordered. They dropped from the vent and quickly dragged the alien bodies into a maintenance closet. Sung Min worked quickly, using his access codes to delete the security footage while He Newell planted false data in the system. They'll think their guards just disappeared, He Newell said, finishing his work, just like the others. Over the past week, they had been systematically targeting Keth patrols and installations throughout the station, never attacking head-on, always striking from unexpected angles with weapons and tactics the aliens couldn't predict. The Keth were starting to show signs of confusion. Their perfect formations had gaps now, as soldiers hesitated before entering maintenance areas. They'd started posting extra guards at power junctions, making them even easier targets for the Resistance's hit-and-run tactics. In OVA, Jai-Woo vocalized into her communicator, "What's the current Keth communication pattern?" "Their signals show increasing frequency of status checks," the AI reported. "They appear to be having difficulty maintaining unified control over their forces. Individual units are showing signs of autonomous behavior." That was exactly what Jai-Woo had hoped for. The Keth's hive mind was their strength, but it also meant they had no experience dealing with uncertainty or fear. Every disappeared patrol, every inexplicable system failure, added to their confusion. Sung Min led them through another series of tunnels, eventually emerging near the hydroponics section. 3 more refugees hiding in the old storage tanks, he reported. They've been avoiding Keth patrols for days. Jai-Woo nodded. Their resistance was growing stronger as they rescued more colonists. Each person brought new skills and knowledge of the station's hidden spaces. The Keth controlled the main corridors, but the humans owned the shadows. "Have you heard the latest?" He Newell asked as they moved toward the hydroponics section. "The Keth soldiers are refusing to patrol alone now. They think human ghosts are hunting them." Jai-Woo suppressed a laugh. Their primitive weapons left no energy signatures, their mechanical traps confused the alien sensors, and their knowledge of the station's hidden paths made them seem to appear and disappear at will. To the technologically advanced Keth, it must have seemed like magic. They reached the hydroponic storage tanks and found the refugees, 2 technicians and a medical officer. The fear in their eyes turned to hope when they saw Jai-Woo's commander insignia. "Spread the word quietly," she told them as they led them back to their hidden base in the archives. "The resistance is growing. The Keth aren't invincible. They're just another enemy who's forgotten that humanity survived worse threats by being clever rather than advanced. Later, reviewing their progress with Neo-VA, Ji-Woo watched the Keth patrol patterns on the security feeds. Their once perfect formations were showing clear signs of strain. Soldiers clustered together instead of spreading out efficiently. They avoided dark corners and maintenance access points. "They're starting to fear us," she observed. "They came here thinking we were primitive because we're individuals instead of a hive mind. Now they're learning that individuality means we can think in ways they never imagined." Hanul looked up from where he was teaching more refugees how to use the old weapons. "It's working better than we hoped. Every time we hit them and disappear, the story grows. I heard some of the Keth actually fired at their own shadows yesterday." Ji-Woo smiled. Fear was spreading through the Keth's hive mind like a virus, making them doubt their own superiority. Their perfect coordination was becoming hesitation, their absolute confidence turning to uncertainty. "Tomorrow we hit their command center," she announced. "They'll expect us to use advanced tactics and modern weapons. Instead, we'll show them how humans fought before we had all this technology. Sometimes the oldest shadows are the darkest ones." The resistance members nodded, checking their weapons and memorizing their routes through the station's hidden paths. The Keth had come to hunt humans, but they were learning a harsh lesson. In the darkness between the stars, the hunters could easily become the hunted. The hydroponics bay hummed with renewed activity as young Mei Choi worked her magic with the surviving plants. The agricultural supervisor had joined the resistance 2 weeks ago, and her expertise was already making a difference. Under her care, the hidden food production systems were yielding enough to feed their growing numbers. The Keth never understood these systems, Young Mai explained to Ji-Woo, showing her the vertical farming units they'd restored. "They thought destroying the main agricultural domes would starve us out. They didn't know about the backup systems in the maintenance levels." Ji-Woo watched as other resistance members harvested vegetables under Yummi's guidance. Their hidden base in the archives had expanded into a network of forgotten spaces throughout the station. What started as a small group had grown into an organized force of over 100 people. "Commander," Haenul's voice crackled through her communicator. "You need to see this. We're picking up transmissions from the Keth fleet." Ji-Woo made her way through the maintenance tunnels to their communications center, where Haenul and Sungmin were monitoring intercepted Keth signals. The aliens' perfect coordination was showing more cracks every day, making their communications easier to intercept. "They're calling for reinforcements," Haenul reported, his eyes bright with excitement. "But that's not the best part. Listen to this." He played a decoded transmission. The Keth language was still incomprehensible, but Neo-VA provided a rough translation. "Station 7 remains uncontrolled. Human resistance employs unknown combat methods. Additional forces required. Current tactics ineffective." "They're admitting they can't beat us," Sungmin said, grinning. "Us with our primitive weapons and old-fashioned tactics." Ji-Woo studied the transmission data. "They're sending 3 more ships, but they're changing their approach. Look at these deployment patterns. They're spacing their forces out, trying to avoid our ambush tactics." "Too late," Haenul replied. "We've already started broadcasting encrypted messages to other colonies. The word is spreading about how we're fighting back. The Keth can't stop the information now that we're using the old frequency bands they ignore." The Resistance's success had started small. A few disappeared patrols, some damaged systems, rescued prisoners. But like a snowball rolling downhill, each victory made the next one easier. The Keth's rigid thinking couldn't adapt to their constantly changing tactics. Young Mi joined them, bringing food for the communications team. "The Keth tried to raid storage level 3 again," she reported. "They fell for the pressure plate traps. Simple springs and weights, no electronics for them to detect. They lost 5 soldiers." Ji-Woo nodded approvingly. Everyone in the resistance contributed ideas now. Young Mi's knowledge of agricultural systems had helped them set up traps using irrigation equipment. Some men's maintenance expertise let them appear and disappear through walls. Even the children they'd rescued played a part, their small size letting them scout through vents too tight for adults. NOVA, Jiwoo called. Show me the station-wide status. The AI displayed a map showing Keth-controlled areas in red and resistance zones in green. The red was steadily shrinking, with more areas turning gray. Contested spaces where the Keth no longer patrolled confidently. Message incoming, NOVA announced. Origin, Titan Colony. They're using our old encryption protocols. The message was brief but clear. We hear you, Station 7. The Keth hit us hard last month, but we're fighting back using your tactics. Their perfect formations break when they can't predict where we'll strike. Keep broadcasting. You've given us hope. Similar messages had started arriving from other colonies. The Keth's hive mind, which made them so formidable in direct combat, was becoming their weakness. When one Keth unit learned to fear the darkness, that fear spread to all of them. Reinforcements have entered the system, NOVA reported. 3 Keth destroyers approaching on standard vectors. Jiwoo smiled. Standard vectors. They're still thinking like a hive mind, even while trying to adapt. Hey Newell, is the surprise we planted in Docking Bay 2 still ready, armed and waiting? They'll never expect old-fashioned explosives rigged to mechanical triggers. No power signatures, no electronic detonators. The resistance gathered to watch as the first Keth ship approached the station. They'd let the aliens dock, thinking they had control of the bay. The trap was set with technology so old it was new again. Simple machines and chemical reactions that the Keth's advanced sensors couldn't comprehend. Yummy, Jiwoo said. How long until the next harvest? 3 days. We'll have enough to feed twice our current numbers. Good, because after today, I think we'll have a lot more people joining us. The Keth thought they could break humanity by taking our technology away. Instead, they reminded us that our greatest strength was never our machines. The first Keth ship extended its docking clamps, exactly as predicted. Jiwoo thought about how far they'd come from those first desperate days after she awoke from cryo sleep. The resistance had grown from 3 people in the maintenance tunnels to a force that was teaching humanity how to fight back across the stars. They're starting docking procedures, Haynewell reported. All their attention is on their perfect, precise movements. They still haven't learned to look for the simple solutions. Jiwoo watched the screens, surrounded by her people. Young Mai with her practical knowledge of survival. Some men who knew every hidden path. Haynewell whose engineering skills bridged past and present. And all the others who'd found their own ways to fight back. Let's show our new guests how Station 7 welcomes uninvited visitors, she said, reaching for the detonator. And then let's send a message to every human colony out there. The tide is turning. Hope isn't just surviving anymore. It's fighting back. Smoke filled the corridors of the captured Keth command center as Jiwoo downloaded data from their central computer. The Resistance's attack had caught the aliens completely off guard. They never expected humans to breach their most secure facility using maintenance tunnels and simple explosives. 5 minutes until their systems reboot, Haynewell warned, keeping watch at the door with one of their salvage rifles. The EMP blast had temporarily disabled the Keth's advanced technology, but it wouldn't last long. Jiwoo worked quickly, copying everything she could from the alien database. The Keth's arrogance had worked in their favor again. They hadn't bothered encrypting their local files, assuming humans couldn't access their advanced systems. Commander, a new voice called out. Du Hyun Kang, their recently rescued communications expert, rushed in. You need to see this. The Keth were studying you specifically. There are hundreds of files about your cryopod. Jiwoo's fingers paused over the console. What? Why would they? A distant explosion cut her off. 3 minutes, Haynewell reminded them. Working together, Jiwoo and Du Hyun copied the relevant files. They barely made it back to the maintenance tunnels before the Keth systems came back online. As they crawled through the narrow spaces, Ji Woo's mind raced. Why would the Keth have files about her? Back in their hidden base, Do Hyun got to work decoding the stolen data. His experience with communication systems made him uniquely qualified to understand the Keth's information storage methods. "This is incredible," he muttered, hours later. "Commander, they've been searching for you since they first arrived. Your cryopod wasn't just for preservation. It was carrying something in your neural patterns." Ji-woo leaned over his shoulder, reading the translated files. Her eyes widened as the truth emerged. During the Third Earth War, she had developed strategies for fighting the collective, a hive mind AI that had nearly destroyed humanity. Those same strategies would work against the Keth. "That's why Earth Command put me in Cryo sleep," she whispered. "They knew we might face another hive mind enemy. My combat experience against the collective was too valuable to lose." Do Hyun nodded excitedly. "The Keth discovered records of your tactics, but they couldn't understand them without your neural patterns. That's why they've been taking human prisoners. They're trying to find someone with similar strategic thinking." "But they can't," Hae-Nul interjected, "because your strategies aren't just plans. They're a whole way of thinking about hive mind psychology. The Keth don't understand because they are a hive mind." Ji-woo sat down heavily as memories flooded back. The battles against the collective, the strategies she'd developed, using chaos theory and unpredictability to disrupt unified consciousness systems. The same principles that had been working against the Keth without her even realizing why they were so effective. "Do Hyun," she said, "can you broadcast this information to other colonies? Not just the tactical data, but the underlying principles." He grinned. "Already working on it. I'm using old radio frequencies the Keth ignore. Their hive mind is so focused on advanced communication methods that they never monitor primitive channels." The next few days were a flurry of activity. Do Hyun worked tirelessly to encode and transmit Ji-woo's tactical knowledge across human space. Young Mei and Sung Min coordinated with their growing network of resistance cells, teaching others how to implement the strategies. "It's not just about the specific tactics," Ji-woo explained during a briefing. "Hive minds, like the Keth, can't handle true randomness. They try to find patterns in everything. When we act unpredictably, it disrupts their entire decision-making process." The responses from other colonies were immediate and enthusiastic. Reports came in of successful attacks using Ji-woo's methods. The Keth, for all their technological superiority, had no defense against strategies specifically designed to exploit their hive mind nature. "Message from Europa Station," Do Hyun announced one morning. "They used your tunnel warfare tactics combined with electromagnetic disruption. An entire Keth battalion was forced to retreat." Similar news arrived daily. The Keth's perfect coordination became their greatest vulnerability. When one part of their hive mind encountered something it couldn't understand, the confusion spread throughout their entire force. "They're pulling back from the outer colonies," Hae-Nul reported, monitoring their communications. "Your strategies aren't just helping us fight. They're making the Keth doubt their own superiority." Ji-woo watched the tactical displays showing Keth ships withdrawing from human space. The knowledge locked in her neural patterns, preserved through 50 years of cryo sleep, was turning the tide of the war. "Earth Command knew," she said softly. "They knew that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to think as individuals, to be unpredictable, to adapt in ways a hive mind never can." Do Hyun looked up from his communication console. New messages coming in. "The colonies are coordinating their resistance efforts. They're calling it the Dawn Protocol, using your strategies to drive the Keth back sector by sector." Ji-woo smiled. The hidden key to humanity's survival had been sleeping alongside her in that cryopod, not advanced weapons or superior technology, but the simple understanding of how to fight an enemy that thought as one. "Keep broadcasting," she ordered. "Every colony needs to understand these principles. The Keth thought their unity was their strength, but they're learning that humanity's greatest power is our diversity. our ability to think and act as individuals while still working together. As more reports of victories arrived, Ji-woo felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Earth Command's long-ago gamble had paid off. They had preserved not just her body through cryo sleep, but the crucial knowledge that would give humanity a fighting chance against an enemy that had seemed invincible. "The tide is turning," Hae-Newell said, watching the tactical displays. "And it all started here, with one person who remembered how to fight an enemy that thinks as one." The command center buzzed with activity as Ji-woo studied the tactical displays. Keth ships surrounded Station 7, their black crystalline forms blocking out the stars. But this time, it wasn't just a siege. It was humanity's chance to strike back. "All resistance cells report ready," Hae-Newell announced, his voice steady despite the tension. "Young-Mei has secured the food supplies, and some Min's teams are in position throughout the maintenance tunnels." Do-hyun looked up from his communication station. "Messages from the other colonies confirm they're ready to launch their attacks as soon as we begin. The Dawn Protocol is in place across human space." Ji-woo nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. Everything they'd learned, every small victory and painful lesson, had led to this. The Keth thought they were coming to crush the rebellion once and for all. Instead, they were walking into a trap 50 years in the making. "NOVA," she called. "Initiate Phase 1. Throughout the station, hidden systems activated. Not the advanced technology the Keth expected, but simple mechanical devices placed in crucial locations. Pressure plates triggered, ventilation systems reversed, and ancient but effective traps sprang to life." The Keth response was immediate but confused. Their perfectly coordinated forces tried to adapt to multiple threats simultaneously, their hive mind struggling to process the chaos. "They're deploying exactly as predicted," Hae-Newell reported, watching the enemy movements. "Their formations are textbook perfect and completely vulnerable to our countermeasures." Ji-woo smiled grimly. "Send the signal. All teams, execute their assigned protocols." Across Station 7, resistance fighters emerged from hidden passages. They struck at the Keth from unexpected angles, using weapons and tactics the aliens couldn't predict. Young-Mi's agricultural teams used modified farming equipment as weapons. Sung-Min's maintenance crews turned the station's infrastructure against the invaders. Multiple Keth units reporting confusion in their neural network, Do-hyun announced. "The disruption is spreading through their hive mind. Other colonies are reporting similar effects as they launch their attacks." The station became a battlefield unlike anything in human history. Modern colonists fought alongside newly awakened Cryo soldiers, combining future technology with classical military tactics. The Keth's superior weapons proved useless against opponents they couldn't find or predict. "Their command ship is moving into position," Hae-Newell warned. "They're preparing to dock." "Perfect," Ji-woo replied. "They still think like a hive mind. They can't help but follow patterns. Spring the trap." When the Keth command ship extended its docking clamps, they found not a defeated station, but a prepared enemy. Hidden charges detonated, primitive but effective explosives that their sensors hadn't detected. The ship's perfect approach became its doom as it drifted, crippled, into the void. "Message from Europa Station," Do-hyun called out excitedly. "Keth forces are retreating from their sector. Luna Base reports the same. The hive mind is losing coherence across multiple systems." Ji-woo watched as the tactical displays showed Keth ships withdrawing in disarray. Their perfect formations broke down as individual units struggled to cope with attacks they couldn't understand or predict. "This is why Earth Command preserved our knowledge," she said softly. "Not just the tactics, but the understanding that humanity's strength lies in our ability to think differently, to adapt and evolve." Throughout human space, colonies that had lived under Keth occupation rose up together. The Dawn Protocol spread like wildfire, not just military tactics, but a reminder of humanity's resilience. Modern colonists and awakened Cryo soldiers fought side by side, proving that the past and future could work together. Station 7's outer defenses are completely clear, Newell reported. The Keth are pulling back from all sectors. They've never experienced a defeat like this. Jiwu moved through the station's corridors, seeing the results of their victory. Everywhere, humans emerged from hiding places, working together to reclaim their home. Young Mei's teams were already replanting the destroyed agricultural domes. Sung Min's crews repaired damage while singing old work songs. Commander, Du Hyun called over the communicator. You need to hear this. We're picking up Keth communications. They're ordering a full retreat from human space. Your strategies didn't just defeat them here. They shattered their confidence across the galaxy. In the following days, news arrived from other colonies. The hybrid fighting forces, combining modern technology with classical tactics, youth's energy with age's wisdom, had proved unstoppable. Station 7 became a symbol of hope, the first human colony to fully break free from Keth control. What do you think they learned from this? Newell asked Jiwu as they watched ships arriving from other colonies, carrying supplies and celebrating their shared victory. They learned that unity isn't always strength, she replied. The Keth thought their hive mind made them superior. Instead, it made them predictable. Humanity survived because we can think as individuals while still working together.